yes, as I was saying, we will be talking about the 4 components. And the first one we'll be talking about is social interaction. So when we look at this picture, what stood out to us was actually the social interaction part of it. What do I mean when I talk about social interaction? Essentially, as the term suggests, it's how I socially interact with another person. So the social interaction skills that I look out for will be how are you engaging another human being in order to interact with you? Is it in an appropriate manner? And what stands out here to us is that is not how we usually conduct an interaction with a person. If you want to have a business meeting, you don't stare down a person. So that is what we mean by social interaction, knowing how to use your language, whether it's body language or your verbal language, to interact with another person. Okay, so let's have a look at this picture over here. You see this little boy here? Let me see if my laser is out. Okay, you see this little boy here holding the green car? So he's here, and then there's a group of children here at the background. So if this child now wants to interact with them, he can use language, whether it's verbal or non-verbal, to create an interaction with them. So he can choose to say, hello, and that will be a greeting. He can also choose to start the interaction by a request, and he can say, oh, can I join you? He can also choose to start this interaction by asking a question. Oh, what game is this? Maybe he doesn't like them and he's like, oh, you're too noisy. I want to play in my car alone. Then in this situation, he may choose to interact with them by a demanding tone and say, go away. So even though we may say, oh, that's not very nice or very friendly, it is still social interaction. He is still interacting with them using language according to his choice. So the idea of social interaction is this child knows that if he uses language to interact with this group of children, there is that possibility. There is not like a picture on the wall where you talk to them and there's no reaction. You can interact with these people. Okay. We also use social interaction skills to follow the conventions of what is in what we expect in a typical interaction. So remember, it's all about how I'm engaging another person, not only the type of language that I choose, but also how I do it. So for example, I know how to have a conversation, and I want to talk to you and have a conversation about what I did on Sunday. I would then know turn-taking skills, part of my social interaction knowledge, that I will say something and then I will wait and let you say something back about what I said. You wouldn't keep going on and keep talking and then not know how to take turns to participate in a conversation. So you see, in this case, the girl will be going, oh dear, I have no idea how to participate, or it's too much at one go. So knowing how to use turn-taking skills, knowing how to interrupt politely according to the social norms that is accepted in your culture. So in certain cultures, it is okay to go, hey, I'm sorry to cut you off there. I would like to ask something. In certain cultures, interrupting politely would mean, oh, maybe you just wave your hand or you use your facial expression to say, I have something I want to say. So being able to use language according to what is accepted for that social interaction in that social convention is considered under social interaction skills. Knowing how to change your topics is also part of this. So I know that in a conversation, if I am talking to you, for example, now I'm talking about maybe my day on Sunday, and now I suddenly want to talk about, oh, what I ate yesterday. I do not suddenly go, oh, on Sunday I went to the park and oh, it was so sweet. It was so sweet I couldn't take it. And you're like, what do you mean? Knowing that if I want to change topic from Sunday, what I did, and moving on to what I ate, I have to give you a topic changer and indicate, oh, now I want to talk about what I ate yesterday instead. So all this falls under how I use language according to the rules and conventions that will suit the social interaction at that time. Body language, as we have said, is also very important. Just now that picture, the first one staring, the person was not saying anything and we felt that it was off already. That is our senses telling us, this interaction is off because of how you are using your body language. In some cultures, being very close to the person and looking them in the eye is very important. But in certain cultures or certain situations, for example, if you're talking to your boss, staring at the eye and maintaining that intense eye contact for such a long time may be even considered rude. So you need to have that knowledge and that know-how that, okay, in this situation, this is the best way to interact with this person. Okay, so that is what we talk about when we talk about social interaction skills. Okay, now we move on to the next portion, which is social cognition. So social cognition, I want you to think about how you would respond if a child is now crying in front of you, a little boy is crying and saying, my toy is broken. Oh, he's heartbroken here. How would you respond? Give it a moment and think. Would you say, okay, I want to go to the zoo? Now, I hope most of you would not have said something along these lines, because we would have good social cognition abilities to know that in this situation, I need to think about who I'm talking to, and I need to change my message and change the way I'm using my language based on who is listening. Okay, so social cognition is talking about how I change my language according to who is listening. It may be giving more or less information based on who I'm talking to. For example, if I want to tell a story for a presentation to the class, I would then use language in a more formal setting, a formal tone. I may say, I may start even with an introduction and say, hi, I'm Yvonne, and now I want to tell you a story about what happened when I broke my toy. You wouldn't tell it to the same way you tell it to your friend and say, wow, that day I broke my toy. It's a different setting, and I would know how to use the correct tone and the correct way of using it, because I know I have who is listening, and I'm keeping in mind who is listening to my story, and that is social cognition. Similar, another example would be when you're talking to a baby versus you're talking to a parent. If I'm talking to my baby brother, I would say, come, give me now. I would tell my mother, I wouldn't go to my mother and say, come, give me now. I would say, Mom, can I please have the remote control? So I would change it based on who is listening and what is appropriate for that situation at that time. Okay? So there are two big, broader concepts that have to be in place in order for me to be able to change my language according to the listener or the situation. And two big theories here is, one is the theory of mind and the other is perspective taking. So theory of mind is the awareness that another person and I may not have the same thoughts and feelings. So I have to be aware. For example, the little boy who was crying and said, my toy is broken. Oh no, I feel so sad. Now, the boy has told that to me. If in this moment, a new friend walks into the room and the friend did not hear the boy say, my toy is broken, I have good theory of mind, so I will be able to say, okay, my friend did not hear what I heard from this boy, and what I have, the knowledge in my mind, is not shared with this friend because they were not there. So I would then know this friend does not know that this boy is crying because his toy is broken. I know that because I have an idea, okay, this is in my mind. And I will not assume that you know that because I know that you just walked into the room. So that is theory of mind. Another way I like to look at it is separating of minds. My mind and your mind are not the same. Okay, so knowing that gives me the skills that I need to be able to say, okay, if what you know in your mind and what I know in my mind are different, I might need to change what I'm saying so that I can fill up the gaps, or I can level up what we know in our minds to be at the same level to have the conversation. Another point that is important for social cognition would be perspective taking. And that would be understanding how another person may feel. So in the same example where the boy was crying and he said, my toy is broken. If I have perspective taking ability, I would be able to put myself in that boy's shoes and think, oh dear, he must be feeling very sad. My toy is not broken, I'm aware of that, but I can take the perspective of his position and say, okay, he must be feeling quite sad now, because if my toy was broken, I would be feeling sad. So knowing theory of mind, having a good theory of mind and having perspective taking ability helps me with social cognition skills to be able to change the language for who I am talking to, okay? So in this situation, when the child is saying, my toy is broken, I would choose to acknowledge. So instead of saying in the previous one, we said, okay. Technically, I'm doing the same thing. I'm acknowledging that I heard you say that your toy is broken. But here, I would choose to use a more empathetic choice of words by acknowledging, by not just saying, okay, I'm acknowledging by saying, oh dear, I want to show that I can share your sad feeling, and at this point you are probably feeling upset and you want somebody to say oh dear to you rather than just okay. And just now I wanted to tell you, you may be my friend that I always go to the zoo with, or we like animals a lot, and I wanted to tell you, hey, I want to go to the zoo, but now that I know that your toy is broken, I may change my initial intention. I may change what I want to say and say, okay, now that you are so upset, this may not be the best time for me to talk to you about the zoo. Let me see, what would I be able to say to make you feel better? Because what would I want to hear I was in your perspective? What would I want to hear to feel better? And then I might guess, would you like to play with mine instead? So instead of going, okay, I want to go to the zoo, I would then use my social cognition skills to think, how can I change what I'm saying based on what is happening now? My friend is crying, they're upset that their toy is broken. I'm going to say, oh dear, would you like to play with mine instead? And share that moment instead. Okay, so that is using good social cognition skills to change. This is different from social interaction, because social interaction is where I'm talking about establishing that communication with you in the first place, where I'm just, how do I initiate and hold that conversation and have that interaction in an appropriate manner. Cognition is going and thinking, how can I change my language instead of just use language to interact with you, okay? Now, the third component that we're going to be looking at in social communication skills is pragmatics. Now, what comes to your mind when you hear somebody say, wow, she really pulled through till the end? I wonder how many of you would have thought of these images of, somebody pulling their hair because pulled through, right? And then, or pulling a wagon with a little puppy, pulled through to the end of the road. Or I'm pulling a kite. Technically, all these are pulled. But I think most of us here, with pragmatic skills, we would have thought of something about somebody overcoming something that was quite difficult. They endured some sort of hardship and they really made an achievement. So when we think of pulled through, I think most of you would have the same as me, I hope, where we would think, she really endured and pulled through for something difficult. And that is what we mean by what we are talking about in pragmatics, the ability to understand non-literal and ambiguous language. So being able to understand non-literal or figurative language, or more ambiguous where it's not so specific, it may not be so clear what we are talking about, it's important for you to gain the full meaning of the context. So you know how to look at the context to find, okay, what this person said was not enough for me to comprehend the situation fully. I must also look at the context and see if I can gain more information to fully understand what is being said. Okay, so imagine I now put in a facial expression like that when I say, wow, she really pulled through to the end, and then I'm rolling my eyes and my body language is telling me something else. And my pragmatic skill then would be able to help me understand, okay, with body language, the body language is adding another layer of information that maybe it was not such a sincere thought. Maybe I was actually thinking it's not so difficult what was happening. I thought, oh, she was making a big fuss out of nothing. She really pulled through. It wasn't actually anything very big or deserving of a praise. So the body language changes the entire meaning. First, we have a meaning of it's not the literal pulling, but it is actually understanding it as a figure of speech. But then adding on the layer of body language tells me, oh, there's actually yet another level. And in this sign here, you see at the side, this person is this way, and you're like, which way is this way? It can be any of these ways. And this is where giving enough information and my pragmatic skill to listen in a conversation, maybe before the person say it is this way, they have already explained to me that, oh, okay, if you want to go to the shop, it is over this side, follow us this way. And if you want to go and find a taxi, it is at the opposite end. So then after saying that to you, and I say, oh, you want to go for that toilet? Oh, the toilet is this way too. Then I will know, okay, the this way means now the same way as the shops, not the same way I will go for the taxi. And this is because I know how to apply my pragmatic skill to think, what did this person just say before that could mean this way? Body language can also help when I just point and say, this way. I know I wouldn't say the way that my finger is pointing at, please follow. I would just say this way because I know body language can help me explain it's just here. All right. So pragmatic skill is it would help me to understand the deeper layer and the additional meanings that could be derived based on the context in this social communication. Okay. So that is pragmatic. So remember, social interaction is how we establish that communication to begin with. And then social cognition is how I change. Instead of just using language to initiate an interaction with you, now social cognition, I'm changing how I'm using that language based on what I'm presented with. And then pragmatics is being able to understand the deeper layer of the meanings by getting information from the surrounding, not just my surrounding and environment, where are we talking, but also looking at your body language and also going through what is figurative. It may not be the literal meaning of that word, okay? And then we have one more component, which is language processing. So think about this situation, okay? You have the father here holding a box, and he is asking the child, do you want me to help you open the box? And in this situation, the child says, help you open the box. Now, the first instinct we would say, oh, maybe the child didn't know that the father was offering to open the box, and the child was actually trying to say, yes, I want you to help me open the box. But could it be that this child also wanted to help the father open the box? Could it be that the child was thinking, oh, daddy is helping me open the box. Can I help you to open also? Help you in the process of opening the box together. Now, this is where language processing skills is very important. We cannot just assume that, oh, help you open the box, oh, they meant it in the wrong way or they are not using it properly. So I need to have a good understanding. Do you know, are you clear with your pronouns? Could it be that you are using the me, help me open the box versus help you open the box in a wrong sense? Or are you really misinterpreting or offering me another situation in this context here? Could it be that you wanted to join me and help me open the box together? Or did you really not know how to use the language properly? And actually you wanted to say, can you help me open the box? So the adult now opens the box. So think about the importance of language processing skill. It is actually the key of all your other social communication components. So sometimes when you read on Google or you read other websites, they may leave out this portion and they focus on, oh, social interaction skills. We may focus on social cognition skills and building up pragmatic language skills. But at the end of the day, your language processing skill is the glue that holds all of these skills together. And I have parents who actually also come to us and say, don't need to work on the language. We can work on the language on our own, the grammar, all those, not important. I just want you to help me with my child, cannot make friends, they need help with social interaction. And I will always go back and say, I would love to just work on that. But at the end of the day, if we think about what language is a tool. It is a tool that we use to communicate. And the aim of communication is always social. We are trying to establish a social link to communicate my message. So language is your tool to communicate socially. So all the more, you cannot just say language is not important. We just look at the soft skills, Your language is what is helping you deliver that soft skills. Knowing what is the appropriate body language, that is also your language processing. Processing a person's facial expression, that is also how I'm processing non-verbal language, okay? So it is the key piece of your social communication puzzle, all right? And now we are familiar with the 4 components of our social communication skills. We have social interaction, social cognition, pragmatics, and language processing, okay? So now we'll talk about social communication benchmarks. You may be thinking, Yvonne, you share with me all these interesting theories and they seem so big and abstract. How is it related to a preschooler? Is it necessary for a preschooler? Can I even apply it? And the answer is yes. From the day we are born, we are interacting with our environment. Social communication happens the moment we are out in this world. A baby, think about why a baby prefers looking at a human face as opposed to looking at a picture of a plant. A baby will know that I can have some social interaction with a face rather than a static picture of a plant. They know how to have that basic caregiver interaction. You have interactive games where if the mommy smiles at the child knows, hey, I can smile back. That is your beginning parts of your social communication already. That is social interaction. I am interacting with my environment. I'm interacting with the people in my environment by smiling, by doing vocal turn taking. So before 1 year old, they are still babbling. How are they babbling? They are learning that babbles can interact with the adults in my environment. I can go ba ba ba, and I'll have people looking and turning at me. Things stop. Things come in front of me. So that is already social interaction. They are already before 1 year old. They are learning how to use gestures. They may be trying to pull or grab you for attention. Yes, some of it is reflex, but it's also learning that social cognition and that social interaction that, hey, this is getting me some interaction, and that's social. And then we have at 1 and 2 year old, the children are already here learning how to use vocal methods to ask for attention. So 1 year old, we have our first words coming out already. So here is where we are using verbal language to actually greet, say hi, say bye, to request for things. We know how to say I want, or we know how to point and label and inform. I can see, oh, cat, I can see dada, I can see milk. So here is you're already using social communication as well, even if it's just single words here. So at 1 year old, you're learning how to use vocal means to ask for attention. You are learning how to use body language, grabbing mom. If I'm saying, I don't know how to say come, I grab her and I say, here, it's over here. I cannot describe it's on the shelf, I point. And I take her hand and put it there. So I'm using gestures to supplement my verbal language to get my message across to you. And here, I'm already able to demonstrate sympathy, empathy, and sharing. Remember the last time your toddler was next to another crying child on the bus? They heard the child cry and they're like, hey, I want to cry too. That reminds me of a time that I feel sad. And they start crying too. That's the budding signs of social communication and cognition and sharing the empathy and that feelings. When we are around 2 to 3-year-olds, you hear this is the why stage, when we have a lot of why. They're asking why, they're asking for clarification, they're also adding more clarification. So here is where the language is showing what's going on in their social cognition thinking as well. They're asking why and they realize, hey, if I ask why, I get more information. I can interact with you to get more information. Here, they are also learning to express their emotions. So this, when I say express, it means that they know that you are the audience. So think about a 1-year-old who is hungry and is crying because they are hungry. They may not be directing it and waiting for the mummy to be in front of them in order to cry and say, okay, mummy is here now, let me cry and say, I'm hungry. A 1-year-old child is crying out of a physiological need. By the time they're 2 to 3, they are very aware. So that's why 2 to 3-year-olds will have tantrums. This is where we have they are showing their tantrum, they are stomping their feet, they are not just crying, they are rolling on the floor. All this is because they are aware that, hey, somebody is watching me and somebody is looking at me and I am interacting with them through my expression of my emotion in this manner. So this is where they're starting to explore the boundaries and they're getting to be more aware that, oh, hey, if I do it this way, they are looking and I get what I want and they're learning, hey, this is one way. Throwing a tantrum may be a way I am interacting with them. So this is where we want to teach them, okay, what is a socially appropriate way to express your emotion? Yes, you can be upset, but maybe to this extent, how else can you express it without having a meltdown? Okay. So at 3 to 4, what I'm looking at is being able to hold longer dialogues already. So together, it goes hand in hand with my language again. My language now enables me to string more than 2 words together. I'm stringing more. I have more vocabulary. My vocabulary explosion has happened when I was 2 to 3. And here I have a lot more labels and a lot more words that I can use to talk to you and engage with you, a dialogue with you. So now I can have longer dialogues with you. I can have more than one conversation with you. I can change topics with you. I can not only talk about the dog that is in the window. I can talk about what I want. I can talk about what happened. So here is where you're slowly starting to build beginning storytelling skills already. This is where you go just now and then, and then, and then, and then, and then you start seeing that emerging links because I realize I can tell you more than this and the language is enabling me to have that longer conversation with you. And with that comes conversation skills. How do I maintain a conversation? How do I start a new conversation topic? How do I end a conversation? If I want to say, okay, I'm done talking about this conversation. Can I talk about something else? And if a conversation has broken down, for example, if I don't remember or I don't understand what you're saying, maybe mama has used a difficult word. And here is where your child will start to be able to say, Mama, what does photosynthesis mean? And you'll go, oh, that was a tough word. Let me explain to you. So they know how to repair conversation breakdown. And they're like, okay, I didn't understand that part of that conversation. Mama, what is that? What is this? They start to ask for explanations. Okay, so at 4 to 5, this is where they are even more aware and the social communication skills are even maturing even more. They learn how to use things like indirect requests. They realize that when a teacher says, can you please sit down? It is actually sit down. It is a request for me to sit down. It is not for me to say, no, no, thank you, I would like to stand. They know how to ask, could I have this? May I? Asking permission, the different forms and the different tones that you use to ask. They learn that you have, and this is where we talked about the theory of mind beginning. So the TOM here, I meant theory of mind and the perspective taking. Social cognition really starts to kick in here, where I realize that, hey, we don't share a mind. Your mind is different than mine. They start to take into consideration and show more empathy, show more, I can feel you. Oh, how can I adjust what I'm saying? Remember, change my language according to what is happening in this social situation. This is where you may also start to see them telling lies, where they're like, oh, you do not know the same thing that I do. Oh, this is where I can start exploring that. Okay, so these are some things that as a speech therapist, I would look at to look at the social communication development of a child. There are much more than this, and it's definitely not an exhaustive table, but this is just some key points that I would tend to look at. If you want to find out more information, I do recommend that you go on to ASHA's website, so American Speech Hearing and Language Association. I've gotten quite a bit of information from there to put in this table here. So if you're interested, you can check that out, or you can just email us and we can have a more conversation with you about what your concerns are. But this is just a brief idea of what we are looking at each age group. And yes, we have social communication skills that we do develop them right from birth. Okay, social is happening the moment we are born into this social world. Okay, next on the agenda, we will be talking about social communication disorder as a diagnosis on its own. So yes, it is a diagnosis on its own, and it is diagnosed as social communication disorder is characterized with difficulties with the use of verbal and non-verbal language for social purposes. Primary difficulties are in social interaction. I hope that is familiar with you. Social cognition, changing language for who is listening, and pragmatics, learning how to look at the social situation that is going on to get a deeper layer of meaning and to get the full understanding of what is happening. Okay, so it is a separate disorder that we can diagnose. Most children who do demonstrate social communication disorders would have difficulties in social situations. So for example, having to play with other same age children in the playground, or maybe in visiting relatives and you have a play area there, learning how to join from unfamiliar friends, or making friendships, for example, not knowing how to approach a friend to say, I want to join your game, I want to join you and play with you, or even saying, hi, this is my name, can I know your name? Building that conversation with friends. If you have issues with social interaction, social cognition, or language processing and pragmatics, all of this, building friendships, knowing what is the appropriate way to interact in this social situation as opposed to that social situation, that will be difficult for you. And you will also face difficulties in school. So remember just now I shared the example of indirect request, understanding that when the teacher says, can you please sit down, it is a command to sit down. You do not say, oh, no, thank you, teacher, I want to stand. Or learning to follow and repair a communication breakdown to say, teacher, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Can you repeat? Or what was the instruction again when you didn't catch the instruction? Or learning how to ask your friend, what page did she say we were on? All these are social communication skills that are necessary for you to cope with school. So if you have difficulties understanding the interaction, how to conduct a proper social interaction, how to think of who I'm talking to and change my language accordingly, how to look at the context, look at body language and add to what could the full meaning of this interaction mean. You will have difficulties in these areas, and it could be that you are having social communication disorder. And at this stage, a lot of parents will be thinking, so is it autism? Is it autism spectrum disorder? And my answer is no, it can be a separate diagnosis. So social communication disorder in the latest DSM manual is a separate diagnosis from autism spectrum disorders. So autism spectrum disorders, yes, one of the criteria is that you have social communication and interaction difficulties. But another important criteria is that you have restricted and repetitive behaviors and interests. So just because you have social communication difficulties may not necessarily mean that you have autism spectrum disorder. If you do have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, however, it means that you will not have a separate diagnosis of social communication disorder, because it will be assumed under that diagnosis of autism that you will have the difficulties in the social components as well. But what I'm saying is there is that possibility that it is not. So over here where it doesn't overlap, okay? In this area, you may have purely social communication disorder on its own as well. Now, this is a fairly new branching out that it wasn't there in the past 20 years, I think. So I think only recently, yes, that it was out as a separate diagnosis. So it may be a new term for some to hear, what is social communication disorder? But yes, there is such a thing that is separate from ASD, okay? You can, however, have social communication disorder with other diagnoses. So that is possible because autism is the one where it is assumed you also have social communication difficulties. These other diagnoses may not have that assumption. So that's where you will have two diagnoses where you have social communication disorder and you may also have dementia. You may also have another learning disability. Okay. So that is social communication disorder as a diagnosis on its own. Now, we have talked about treatment approaches and strategies. You're thinking, what is the best treatment approach or the best strategy that we should use if you are concerned that your child has social communication difficulties? Now, I have to say here, there are many techniques out there and there are many approaches. And you may think it's very cliche, but I will say the same thing every time a parent asks me, that is the best treatment approach is the treatment approach that is suited and tailored for your child. Because as we look through just now the 4 components of social communication, if your child is having difficulties more on the social interaction part of social communication, knowing how to even not grab a friend's hair and not poke you in order to talk to you, I may not say, okay, go for social thinking course or go for social scripts. If your child's language skill is not able to handle knowing a script, then this may not be the best treatment for me. I may want to say, oh, let's try some behavioral techniques. But if my issue here is my child has language skills, has some language skills, but doesn't really know how to make friends, or they know how to follow a script, but they don't know how to change, when a friend is crying, how to approach, then I might say, oh, then social thinking may be the way that we approach and work on the issues here. And across the lifespan, as we work on one issue to another issue, the approach that we need based on the difficulty that is surfacing at that moment may change as well. So the best treatment is one that takes into consideration all these different approaches and applies it for what your child needs at that moment in time. So some parents come and so at Summers, we do have social communication groups. We do conduct social thinking groups as well. And some parents come and they're like, I don't want my child to have speech therapy. I don't want one-to-one. I only want a social communication group. My child can talk already. I don't need anything else, just a group. And in that situation, sometimes I find myself having to tell the parent, I'm sorry, but at this stage, based on my assessment of what your child's social skills are, he may benefit from a smaller group, or may benefit from a one-to-one first, or may even benefit from working on language processing, that core in the middle of social communication, before we even talk about being in a social skills group. It is very effective, and that's why you would hear good things about it, but we must also always see who is the most appropriate one, which is why when people sign up, we don't always say, okay, sure, you can join our group. We always have an assessment and we need to see, is this the suitable treatment for your child for the particular difficulty that they are facing at that moment in time? Because when they go to the different school or they grow and they meet different social needs, their social needs will change, and we need to change according and make sure that they have the skills to cope with those situations as well. Okay, so the takeaway points for today's social communication skills webinar is the components of social communication. I hope you're familiar with what I'm talking about by social interaction, using language to interact with another human being in the appropriate manner, social cognition, changing my language according to who is talking and listening, pragmatics, learning how to look at my environment and look at the context and try to get a deeper layer or the full meaning of what is going on and what is the best, most appropriate way to behave and communicate in this situation. And then I also have the importance of language skills, okay? it is very important we cannot take out language from social. Language is used in order to achieve social communication, okay? And there's no one size fits all. I hope you're not disappointed. Like, what? We said through this and she couldn't give us the magic potion for social communication skills. The magic potion is the one that is tailored and customized to fit your child, because there are so many components, as you've seen, to look out for, and so many ways that they can present themselves. So the best intervention is the one that is tailored for your child, okay? So thank you for staying all the way to the end. I hope you have understood some of it, or if not most of it. And if you have any further questions, you can always reach out to us at ask@summertherapyservices.com or at our Facebook page. Okay. So now we'll be going on to our Q&A section. Oh yes, this is our references also. If you like, we can share them with you. And for some questions, hang on now. Let me stop this sharing.
Okay, thank you very much, Yvonne, for your sharing. There was a lot of information. I think for all the parents or preschool teachers or educators who are there among us, I think one most important point to take away is that children really do just have social communication disorders. So we have referral from teachers or principals even to say, I'm sure this kid has got autism. Then I'm like, there's such thing called social communication disorder.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, personally, I've seen this child from all my old kids. Like she started with me when she was like 2+ years old. No eye contact, very shy, not talking a lot. Mom asked me whether she's on the spectrum, have autism. I say, let's work on the language, work on the social communication and see where it goes. And now she's in P3, doing very well, mainstream. So yeah.
Yay.
So good. Okay, now so let's answer some questions. Okay, now we have this question. Let me read it out. My son is 2+ years, but not asking why to clarify and only expresses emotions at times. Is this normal?
Wow. This is not enough information for me. I need to see your child. Okay, at 2, if the child is not asking why yet at 2, I wouldn't be too worried just yet. So if you take a look at the language milestones, I'm usually expecting the why questions to come out more at around 3. Okay, so 2 to 3, around the end part of 2 towards 3-year-old, that will be where I'm looking at. So maybe give your child until he's 3 to look out for the why. Meanwhile, you can model for him. I do suggest you start modeling the why and giving the answers to the why so that your son is aware and knows that, oh, actually there's such a term called why, and I can use this why question to get more information also. So modeling is the best way for young children to let them have an idea that, okay, and if similarly for the part you were saying about clarifying, why to clarify, and expressing emotions at times. So I would need to know, what do you mean at times? Is it he doesn't express any emotions? Have we asked your son how they are feeling? That can be a habit also. Like you can ask your child, how are you feeling? Are you feeling happy? If your child is not having a lot of interaction to let them feel very happy or very sad, and it's just normal, then it's quite normal for them not to say much also. So most of our children we know tend to have very happy parents interacting with them. So you can always go, oh, how are you feeling? You're laughing. And again, the same thing, model to them that, oh, I'm happy. I like this so much. And then the child will learn, oh, that's how daddy says something, or that's how mommy says their emotion. I also want to tell them, hey, I'm happy. I like this a lot. So modeling is very, very helpful for especially 2 to 3-year-old children. Yeah.
Yeah, when we model the emotions, you can also say, oh, I'm so happy because I get to eat ice cream.
Yes.
So like add the why component inside. Yeah, so they would start asking why and knowing that, oh, when I have this emotion, there's a reason behind it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So another question. Thank you so much for this talk. It's helping me to also think about social communication among preschoolers in a cross-cultural setting or in a class that has children coming from different cultures. As guest children in a different host country or local host children interacting with guest children, will you shed some light as in how cultures might affect social communication and some tips or advices as caregivers or helpers in this aspect?
That's a very interesting question. So we're talking about having, if I'm understanding the question correctly, so we're talking about having children who may not be familiar with the local culture join the class. So how can we help that social communication and interaction? So as everything is always sharing and talking about it, having an open dialogue that, this is how we do things. So as teachers, we tend to have rules, classroom rules, do not talk when the teacher is talking, raise your hands to go to the toilet. So sometimes explicitly telling them the rules or what is expected in such a situation can help children, especially those who are not so familiar and need more help to gain what is the unwritten rule in this situation. For certain children, they may not know that it's okay in this teacher's class to say, teacher, that was so funny. They would think, oh, I'm not supposed to say anything. So in that situation, then you may say, okay, in our class, you can say that you're happy. If you can just raise your hand and tell teacher you're happy, or you can call for teacher by just saying, Teacher Yvonne, and then teacher will come and talk to you. So just explicitly telling them the rules can help in these situations. And it's usually on the spot. I think when you have a group, when they're mixing in a group dynamic, when the situation happens, that is the best teaching point, where you can say, okay, this is what happened. How can I explain? Maybe a person was pushing somebody away because they sat too close to them. And then you can say, okay, just now somebody pushed your friend, and this is okay. Is it not okay? Is this good for us? And then why? And then ask them to clarify, why did you push them, or what did you feel? So exploring those incidences help them to gain better understanding of each other, and why my friend may be doing that, and why my friend didn't like it when I did something. So explicitly telling them the rules, and then when something happens and you have a teaching point, pause, spend some time on that social communication, and give that social communication a time to shine, and let them know that there are differences. Your friends are thinking something that's different from you. You have something that's different from them. And as the adult there, you have the advantage to tell them, okay, here is my thoughts on this. This is what we are going to be okay with. Okay, so that there's no like, oh, who is better, or who's the correct way. Yeah, I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, sometimes to prepare those children, it's good to prep them by telling them explicitly what the cultural rules are. It's really helpful for them to be aware and mindful and settle better in the new environment. I think not only about cross-cultural setting, but also a lot of our children with special needs going into a mainstream school setting. I have a lot of children struggling because not only are they unaware of the rules in the new big school, those in the big school are also unaware of special needs. So I think it takes two hands to clap. I would ask the parents to tell the child with special needs what are the rules of the big school, and also encourage the teachers in the school to embrace the child with special needs. Yeah, to say that, oh, sometimes this boy might laugh inappropriately, or might just walk out of the class, or might just fidget in his chair, but these are how he actually regulates himself. So both sides has a little bit more understanding of what's going on. Yeah, and this will definitely help with the social communication and interaction part. Okay, I hope that helps. So we have, coming back to the previous question, so we have got a little bit more information now. Earlier, the question was about the child not asking why to clarify and just expresses emotions. So the participant was saying that the child expresses his emotions at times. It means that he just repeats back what he learns in school, like the different emotions: happy, sad, angry, surprise. So I think it means that the child will recite the terminologies that he has learned in school. Yeah. That's my understanding. What do you think, Yvonne?
I see. So if the child is repeating something and you feel that they may not be really owning it or really understanding it, it is just, oh, how do you feel? Standard answer is happy, sad, angry, surprised. Then you're thinking this just like a robot repeating. It's not really expressing their true feelings and emotions at that same time. So similar to previously what I would say is you would then need the teaching points. So when in daily life with your child, point out to them when they are feeling something and label that for them. To say, oh, now you're crying. Are you feeling sad? Or you're feeling sad because you're crying because your toy broke, or you can't watch iPad for more than 2 hours. So label that, explain that, use language to tell your child this is what you are feeling now because like that. So then your child gets the idea, okay, this is how I can express, and I'm feeling this and my parent is telling me this is how I'm feeling. Then they will draw that connection rather than just, oh, if I hear how are you feeling, I just choose one of them, maybe the face that I like the most, I will just say happy. So that is how you help to bridge that and build that connection between a real life situation versus a memorized script. Okay, I hope that helps.
It's just like learning the theory part of things and then applying it the practical side. So the best thing is on the spot. If you see the child might be feeling a certain feeling, just label it and then try to think about why he's feeling that way and give him the words. It goes back to the language part that is really important. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's see if there's any last question.